Warning: this program is intended for adults of legal drinking age. Whiskey is consumed and discussed. The intent is to educate our palates on the differences of whiskey flavors and not an intent to get drunk. Please drink responsibly.
Hey, everybody. Hi, I'm Andrew Pierce. Welcome to I Fucking Love Whiskey. I'm Andrew Pierce. I fucking love whiskey. As always, I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Joseph Limbaugh.
That's me. I'm Joseph Limbaugh, and we have a special guest today, as usual. This is Harris, and
Hey, everyone.
Harris O'Malley, who's a dating coach, a nerd advice columnist, a writer, and a whiskey fan. And that last one just totally sealed the deal for us.
Yeah, because we fucking love whiskey.
Yes, and I do, in fact, fucking love whiskey.
Oh, all right. All right.
So
see you next week.
Done.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Well, that was fast. Cool.
Hey, no. So how the show works, we're going to taste 4 whiskeys during the show. The approximate running times are down in the corner there. So if you're watching this recorded, you can always scroll ahead and have a look at that. Meanwhile, we're going to taste the whiskeys. We're going to talk to each other. We're going to find out a lot more about Harris. We're going to have fun. That's really the format of the show, is like have fun. Like it's a super secret sauce. So don't tell anybody. Anyways, our first whiskey, we're going to Japan for our first whiskey here. This is the Kaiyo, the Peated Mizunara Oak second edition, 46%. It's an ex-bourbon and then Japanese Mizunara Oak, which gives it a little kind of a different flavor. So we're going to try and figure out if we can figure out what that flavor is.
Yeah, we've had some, I believe, Japanese whiskey on the show that was aged in that oak. Yeah, it is slightly different, but it's subtle.
Oh,
Smells like paste or paint to me right off the bat.
I get paint.
I can see a little bit of paint. There's a little bit of wood smoke in there, too.
Yeah.
Not quite coming out yet for me in the wood.
For me, it's more like paste, like I don't know, like rubber cement or
there's a little bit of acetone almost.
Yeah,
I can see that. Gumminess, maybe.
Underneath it, a little bit of like floral, but it's like a smoke, kind of like a smoky floral. Like if you took petals and then like smoked them.
And this is new this season. Over here, Thad has put a pin in a map to show where the whiskey's from, which I love. I think that's so great. Thank you.
Oh, that's super cool. This kind of reminds me of like something from Isla almost. Like just from
there's a little left turn at the end of that peat though. That's not it's not expected. Should we
now is this peated? Is this like
it's called the Peated. That's
okay. So I wonder where the peat came from. Is it Japanese peat, or did they have peat like imported from somewhere else? I wonder.
I believe. Sorry.
They actually import it. I forget which this edition is, but I believe this one is from Isla. I believe it's Isla peat in this one. I would have to double check that though.
And
wow, that would make sense that it smells like an Isla whiskey. We're going to taste it. You want to?
I think we have to taste it.
Yeah,
I think so. I think Harris is looking, interested. This is my favorite whiskey.
That's my favorite whiskey too.
Ooh, yeah.
That is so.
Reminded me why I love Japanese whiskeys.
It's smooth, but you get that like the charred oak in there, that little smoky. Ooh.
I love that it tastes like something from Isla, but different. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like it's like you start to go down that path and then you go in a different direction. Like, yeah.
Yeah, right off the top for me, there's like a little bit of like sweetness or candy to it. And then it kind of like moves to something a little bit more astringent almost.
Yeah, it's got like the ending, the finish is like, I don't know, the finish is a little funky. Like it lasts for a long time and there's like I don't know what it is. It's like a waxy sort of finish or. Oh, wow. There's that.
Yeah, maybe a little waxy. But yeah, I get that sweet candy stuff in the beginning, Harris, and then it's like that rolled into the campfire. That's where the candy is now fizzing, and you're trying to get it out before it gets too sooty.
Yeah.
Then you eat it anyway because
a little bit of burn to it, which is really, really nice too.
Yeah, it does have a lot of more heat than you would expect for like what 46% for sure, especially on the end. It's like pulling a marshmallow out of the fire that fell into the fire, and you pop it in your mouth, and it, as
actually, yeah, that's a really great way of describing it, because the candy at the first does kind of taste a little bit like not caramel but caramelized. Yeah. So when like the char that you get on the marshmallow when you like light it on fire, then you blow it out.
Yeah, when I was a kid, like my family would always try to brown the marshmallows, and I would just light them on fire and then eat it after it burned. Like that was like my thing, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was I always wanted it browned on the outside. Then I would just take that outside browned, eat that, try and redo.
Really, really trying to maximize the Maillard reaction there, right?
Yeah. Probably why I have stomach cancer now.
It's not funny.
I don't have, not that I know of. I don't think I have that. So. Sorry to bring everyone
down. That is how you get stomach or colon cancer, is that the carbon. So,
but I've heard what is restorative is that I fucking love whiskey.
I just want to reiterate, because this is my favorite whiskey, just because it's so interesting. Like it's neat. It has some really neat flavors because I love stuff from Islay, and it has that entrance for me, but then it goes to some different places. I really like it.
That's part of what I've really not for the last couple of years, I've really been getting into Japanese whiskeys. And it's kind of a pain, because as soon as I find one that I really like, all of a sudden it wins an award or something, and then it disappears from the shelves entirely. Yeah. So it's just this running gag of, oh, hey, I've discovered Yamazaki. Everybody's discovered Yamazaki. I can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
I love the Hibiki Harmony. Everybody loves the Hibiki Harmony now. I'm dreading the day that everybody finds Nika coffee grain, because that's that's one of my favorite Japanese ones. And it's just, yeah, it's got so many great flavors to it, and then it just goes away. If that goes away, it's like, now I'm going to have to try other ones.
Yeah, but you got to stick with certain distilleries, because there's a lack of regulation. They're trying to fix this in Japan right now. There's a lack of regulation, though, because some of them are just importing casks from Scotland and bottling it there and calling it Japanese whiskey. And that just seems very disingenuous to me. But there's a number of distilleries that are doing that. So just be careful.
Do your research.
Do your research. Check the internet.
But I do love Japanese whiskeys. They seem to have like a very specific flavor profile that's, it's delicate and subtle, but really it just grabs you. Like
very well refined is what I feel like. They really figured out, like, this is the flavor that we're trying to get, and we're going to go at it this way to get it. And they really have refined the process.
And I feel like fidelity they go for too is impressive, because they'll bring over the wood casks and they'll bring over the peat or the water, but then distill it there, so it's got its own local flavors too. And
yeah, man, cannot argue with results.
Thaddeus, what do you think of this?
I think this is an extremely interesting whiskey, especially to start off with. For me, I definitely agree with the paint. For me, the nose was quite light and airy, kind of like just being outside, just sitting outside. But I also got a little bit of pool water and some Sharpie in there, which Sharpie's a common note, but it's not like in your face. It's like a hint of Sharpie. For the taste though, it's been a long time since I've had a whiskey with such a unique palate like this. Like, for me, this reminds me of my mother's macaroni and cheese, which used probably about 2 pounds of white Vermont cheddar cheese in it, which made it so delicious. But like, going along with that, definitely pasta water in there. And for me, like, the taste is it's really savory and just meaty for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the finish for me, it's actually quite green. We step away from the savoriness and we go to just like woody green notes and a little bit of astringency.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I agree with all those.
Tried it with water yet?
We haven't. I don't want to, but
I didn't. I haven't tried it yet. I'd be curious. I'm always curious. I was trying to figure out if I could figure out where they source their peat from. and I cannot find the documentation that I came across.
You mean where in
earlier
Isla? Because
today.
didn't you say it was from Isla?
Or where in the world?
So
It might be,
because
they have a first edition, they have a second edition. They did get ingredients from different places. This is the first edition.
Yeah. So the first and second editions source different ingredients from it.
And I may have written second edition on the bottle. It's the first edition that I poured.
Oh.
Oops.
I'll change that.
Man, adding the water to it really opened this one up. It smoothed things out. I can taste a lot more of like the green that you were mentioning.
Damn it, going in.
I'm gonna wait and see.
Some of that astringency turns almost into a pine needle in the nose.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't add water to my whiskey very often. Although the friend of mine who got me into whiskey big time introduced me. He ruined me because the first like whiskey that I had that wasn't just, something like Makers or Jameson or whatever was from his personal collection. He had a bottle of Pappy's, and this was admittedly back in the late 2000s when it was possible to still get a bottle for a vaguely reasonable price, ? And he put a couple of drops of spring water in there, and it just opened everything up so much. It was amazing.
We're like 50-50 on adding water to the whiskey. I'd say maybe a little
I would say more like 60-40. Like
60-40. Like we don't generally like what the water does to it. Sometimes it makes it better, and sometimes it just loses what initially was there without adding water. So it's just science, man. But got to do it. Tipsy Asparagus says the first edition is Orkney peat. So, and guess where we're going next? We're going to Orkney next. But before that, Harris, how did you get to become a consultant for people that have love in the nerd world?
I fell backwards into it. If you had told me even 10 years ago that this is what I would be doing for a living, I would have laughed at you, because especially when I first started doing this, I was still trying to be an artist. I was trying to do graphic design, comics, illustration work. And during all of this, I, like almost all of my readers and all my clients, had a really hard time dating, meeting women, dating with intention. And it was just crazy because it's just one of those things that like we don't get taught that. We don't get taught a lot about social skills outside of basic kindergarten stuff, say please and thank you, share, etc. And so it didn't help that I grew up surrounded by folks like my brother, who is an athlete and an engineer, or our good friend on the blog, I call him Miles, who looks like what would happen if you took Rob Lowe and Hugh Grant and stuck them in some sort of like genetic cyclotron and blended them together. And then on top of that, he's also one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, so you can't hate him. And if he was around, then the rest of us may as well have been invisible.
Yep.
And this all came to a head in the very early 2000s when I was at a wedding that Miles was also there and my brother was there, and Miles and I ended up going head to head, with interest over the same woman at the party. And needless to say, Miles won, I did not. And it didn't help that his room was next to mine. So the entire night, it's just kind of like, all right, loud sex or exorcism, not entirely sure. And like every good nerd who gets frustrated, I just sat there, listening, crying, and then typed how to get good with girls into Google. And that brought me into that first revealed a copy of Neil Strauss's The Game, which I read, of course, because nerd and gross. I read that like it was gospel, and then discovered that the company that he had learned from, Mystery Method, was doing a boot camp. And they were going to be doing it in Austin, and I was just like, oh, do I really want to shell out money for this? I don't know. Do I? Okay. And then I just held my nose, put in my credit card, and then I was, for a solid several years, I was part of the pickup artist scene, which I do not recommend. It was I learned a lot from it, but I also had to later unlearn a lot of stuff. But I will give it credit that what it taught me was a lot about that this was skills. These were not just inherent genetic traits where either you had it or you don't. It was all stuff that you could learn. But it was being part of that and realizing what it was doing to me socially, intellectually, emotionally, that made me eventually kind of go like, I don't like who I've become studying all this, practicing all of this, but I like the success that I'm having. I like that I'm having more sex. I like that I'm better able to talk to women. Is there a way that I can keep doing this without losing my soul? And I kind of had a long dark night of the soul that I was getting ready to go home with a woman and realized I was already planning how I was going to sleep with her at her place, not mine, and then leave and never talk to her again. And kind of like, had a minor breakdown where I just looked at her, like, I can't do this. It's not you, it's me. I'm having like a weird emotional thing. And kind of after I kind of recovered from that 3 days later, it just was like, all right, how can, out of everything I've been taught, what's real, what's not, what's legit, what's not, and just kind of went back to basics. That did a lot of studying about human sexuality, psychology, the psychology of influence, the like genuine what actual science says about male and female sexuality, what sociologists say about it, and trying to like blend all of that together in a way that wasn't as toxic or manipulative as what I had been taught.
Yeah.
And like, long story short, too late, this became part of an episode of a podcast I was on called The League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen. And we had an episode that was about Scott Pilgrim versus the world, and we called it The League versus Our Evil Exes. And so as kind of like the designated man about town for the league, I was kind of taking point on a lot of like our listener questions, and we didn't get to all of the questions, and I felt kind of bad about it. So I did a quick little video, answered those questions, put it up on their forum, thought that was the end of it. And then they started sending me more questions and a couple of rounds of that. And I finally said, I have to do something with this. And I quickly threw together a website, hung out my shingle, and the whole Dr. Nerdlove thing was born.
It's fantastic.
Cool. We should move on to the next whiskey as we follow up.
We should. Yeah. We have some follow-ups.
That's a great story. And I can totally see that journey.
All right, here's an old malt cask from one of the Diang.
Are you okay,
brothers?
Are you now? Old Malt that's another independent bottler?
It's Douglas Lang and Hunter Lang, kind of, the two children of the Lang who started the whole industry of buying bottles from distilleries. They split the inheritance of all the casks, and they kind of created two different things. So Old Particular is one side, Old Malt Cask is the other side, although he also has Signatory. He also has a couple of others, which will appear in the chat magically in a few seconds because I can't think of it right now. But here's an Orkney. It just says Orkney 17-year-old. We are pretty sure this is a Highland Park, which is way up there on the island up the north coast of Scotland. It is a 17-year-old. It was single hogshead, so that means reused bourbon staves. So it's kind of pale from that. It doesn't say first fill or second fill, so it's kind of hard to know.
I mean, if based on the coloring, I would say it probably has to be first fill, but I mean, I don't know, like that.
I think the refill means second use. Is that right? I think that's right.
But yeah. I mean,
anyways.
Who knows?
Now here, the Orkney Peak that we tasted in the first one is going to also be here because this is also from Orkney. So let's go.
Wow.
My favorite whiskey.
Wow, that's really.
This is fresh laundry.
For me, it's like Halloween candy mixed with like kerosene.
I was gonna say it seems a little like the Kaiyo, which I guess makes sense if they're both Orkneys. But yeah, I'm kind of like I can see the Halloween candy, but I can also see like a lot of like iodine to it.
Like honestly, like I would say candy corn mixed with, and I don't like candy corn, but I like the smell of it here.
Yeah, the sweetness in that. Yeah.
so interesting because I love peat and, I love Isla peat, but this is like just a different kind of peat, I think we should taste it.
Should we taste it?
We're a little behind schedule. We should taste it now.
There we go.
That was more smoke than I was expecting.
Uh-huh.
I fucking love whiskey. This is also, yes, definitely my favorite whiskey. 100%. Oh, man.
It's like, did you ever have like a mattress underneath your sleeping bag when you were a kid? Like the little foam roll mattress? Like that's what I'm tasting here. It's not called it's sponge rubber. Is that what it's called? The foam rubber. Like that's what I'm tasting.
Yeah, it reminds me of like those pool toys before they were inflated, but you would go to like a store like Fred Meyer's or whatever store near your house, and they would be in boxes, and it was like that plastic sort of rubbery smell, taste. I never tasted them.
No,
but if I did, they probably would taste like this.
What's that on the finish? It's
almost like oak leaves almost.
Oh, the kind of stinginess you might expect if you bit into one. Yeah.
Yeah, and just a certain amount of like a little bit of musky, like the sort of like muskiness you associate with like fallen leaves in like a wood or something.
A little bit of that funk.
It kind of tastes like roasted chestnuts to me, which I've only had once and I didn't really like, but I like them in this.
Had they been roasting on an open fire though?
Is there any other way to truly roast them?
I don't know. I actually don't know.
There's got to be a lot of ways to roast them. You can put them in a broiler, air fryer, right? I mean,
I suppose.
Roast them, mash them, put them in a stew.
The stew method of getting chestnuts roasted.
It's a Hobbit. That's a Hobbit reference.
There we go.
Are you watching Rings of Power, Harris?
I am really behind on that because I've been trying to watch that and House of the Dragon all pretty much at the same time. So it's just kind of like bouncing between each of them and then just kind of like, wait, which one did I watch the last time? Okay. I'm not enough of a Lord of the Rings like lore nerd to know a lot of the fan theories that are going on. Everyone's like, oh, this person is clearly Sauron. No, it's Sauron. No, it's Gandalf. And I'm just kind of like, sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, they don't like, I mean, it definitely like I really enjoy it, but I'm also a huge like Tolkien like nerd. And so like some of the stuff like veers from the books, which is like, yeah, you're trying to tell a story in a TV show. It's different,
I know just enough to be dangerous, and usually from like a lot of tie-in work, like the Shadows of Mordor video games that really got into like.
Oh yeah, I played all those. I love those video games. Yeah, have you played those?
Played the first one. I never played the sequel.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think it was the sequel that turned Shelob into a sexy woman and also spider, which kind of made me go like.
I just love the mechanic. Like I like, being a super elf and killing a bunch of orcs is fun.
Who doesn't like killing a bunch of orcs?
Well, it's the same sort of like fighting multiple people. That's kind of like now Gotham Knights is the same sort of thing, and Arkham Asylum and all those games.
God, I love
and also
Road
Warrior is very similar to like I'm just going to walk into this fortress and you're already putting water in. I'm going to wait.
I'm putting water in. I need to know. I'm
going to wait and see because I really like this a lot, and I want to see what people say.
I think the thing I really liked about Shadows of Mordor was the rival system they had, where if you like someone killed you or you killed you, like you fought them but they got away, then they would become sort of like they would have a special hate for you and they would start rising up the ranks.
Yeah, that was a cool system.
This has got like a pomegranate in the nose with the water. That I'm probably hallucinating.
I'm finding it's really bringing the sweetness more forward, but less so of like the oakiness or the leaves that from the finish.
See, one of the things I love about this is the savoriness of it. Like I don't want it to be sweeter. What does Thad think? I want to know what Thad thinks.
I was going to say that the taste, the smokiness, the peatiness is knocked down, which might expose me a little more of the savoriness as well.
But I like the smoky peaty. Thad, what do you think? What's your story?
Oh, I love this whiskey. So without water, for me, I definitely get like blueberry waffles topped with melting butter and some syrup drizzled all up in there. There's a hint of dark chocolate in there, a hint of like spring flowers, like like you would just go out as a kid and pick them up, like just random flowers, like not like super floral, but like wisp of like green floral stuff. There's some warmth in there as well, like nutmeg, and then a very weird note that I don't hate, but candied salmon. So like salmon that has like caramelized sugar coating on top of it.
Okay.
Moving on to the taste, I really enjoyed this. Right off the start, I got butterscotch, just like a very liquid butterscotch coming down your throat, which turned into a very medicinal, astringent, cleaner type thing. Then like damp towel, so a little bit of funk in there. Then on the finish for me, it was very, very dry and reminded me of Campari. With water, I haven't tasted it yet, but with water on the nose, it definitely sours it a little bit for me. It takes the sweetness in a different direction, kind of like a warhead candy, where it's sweet and sour all there.
Okay.
But I haven't tasted it yet. But I do have a question for Harris. So, since you were in the pickup artist scene, how do you feel about Andrew Tate and it making kind of a revival in amongst the youth?
Like, I'm listening to Andrew Tate is one of those times where everything I've learned about him, I've learned against my will. So it's just, at least like, there's a lot of things that to criticize the scene for when I was, briefly part of it. But I didn't get the feeling that everybody involved hated women the way that he seems to. There were definitely some folks who were like, some really not good people who were part of it and had some really, really dodgy ideas about women and male and female sexuality. But none of it was quite as openly hostile as I've seen from like Tate stuff. And there's other like groups too, like a couple of people on Twitch. I want to say it's like Fresh and Fit or something like that, where it's one of those times where I've listened to them because people would send it to me and going like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And I would listen to it and I would just be like, why would anyone take advice from someone who very clearly does not like the folks that he's trying to sleep with? Like that's the part that always kind of like mystifies me. It's like, if you're that hostile or that angry or that like looking down on people that you supposedly want a relationship with, then why are you doing this in the first place?
So we're saying that he's gay. Is that what we're coming out and saying on this podcast? Is that it?
I don't think we're going that far, but
no. Okay.
I was just curious.
Just misogynistic.
Yeah. But I was just curious because he's like the new hot thing that's blowing up, in that scene, and as someone who's part of this actual scene, I was just curious.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that I try so hard to actually work against. Especially because it's just one of those things of, everyone talks about like, the phrase toxic masculinity has become such a, pardon the pun, poisoned term, but it's so like these so like very restrictive and very hegemonic and very narrow ideas about what it means to be a man and what it means to be like a socially successful or romantically successful. And when you tie it down to something that narrow, that restrictive, it just makes it virtually impossible to succeed because there's always going to be some way that you're failing. And then it turns masculinity into something that like people can take from you instead of being something inherent in you.
Right. Or something you decide how to express. Like wait a minute. I'm going to express my masculinity in a different way than my father did. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or that you say I have to. Like, I was not the athletic guy in high school. I was the nerd kid. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like all this stuff like, if you're a man, then you need to do this thing. You need to be making this much money. And I'm just kind of like, if I'm a man, literally anything I do is man shit. If I decide to like get really into knitting, then I am, then that by definition, that is manly knitting. If I decide, I want to, be a house husband, then that's, the manliest thing I could possibly do, because it's just, I am a man, therefore whatever I do is man shit.
So yeah, you're doing hot man shit for the for the rest of the fall. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
so many wide different ways of being a man.
Yeah, it's just so narrowly defined, and it's like
it's
but all of sexuality is so, like, people have put it in these little boxes, and they're so stressed out about those boxes being more flexible, and it's like, sexuality is complicated like human beings, and you should let it evolve, and be.
Here's the thing, and I'm going to tie this back. I promise you.
We got to go to the next whiskey.
We should let the expression of everyone's personality come through in how they express their being in whatever gender they choose, just like the whiskeys express themselves in so many different ways based on how they're distilled and the ingredients that they use and the casks that they choose and the way they cool it coming out of the still, the shape of the still, the dent. Okay, anyways, here's one of my favorite distilleries, and apparently everyone else's, because this has become almost as bad as Macallan's to get. It's Springbank. It is a little Campbeltown distillery at the south end of a peninsula, which is why this whole...
Not a lot left in that bottle, Andrew. It looks like you like that bottle.
Apparently I might love it just a little too
and
much.
This is quite a bit darker than the others. Yeah. What type of cask is this finished in?
I would guess it says it's cask strength, but it doesn't tell me what casks went into the making of it, and I do not believe it's a single cask because it's just cask strength. So it could probably have a little bit of bourbon and a little bit of sherry, but I would guess mostly bourbon. That, to me, here it looks very pale.
Yeah, I mean, I could get a hint of like possibly sherry, but I don't.
Sorry, what was that again, Joseph?
Is this is this a single cask, or is it like more than one cask?
It doesn't say single cask. I'm guessing it's multiple casks, but they just
so I think there's probably some bourbon and sherry in here. Both would be my guess.
I think there's a little bit of both. It's got a little bit of that chocolate sweet note for the sherry, and that kind of vanilla yumminess for the bourbon cask, and then just like that thing that it's Springbank, and they just have this beautiful distillation.
Have you been to that distillery?
I have twice.
How is it?
It's fantastic. We need to go, Joseph. We need to take you there.
I want to go.
We need to. It's almost to Isla, so it's a stop in on the way to Isla. We can make that happen. Anyways, Harris is our guest. Why are we talking to each other? We can talk to each other all the time.
I'm definitely noting some band-aids, actually.
I love notes like that. A hint of band-aids, and I'm like, yes, in a good way. I mean, there's something like good about the smell of band-aids, like, I don't know.
It's the plasticized band-aid. It's not the,
not the cloth, not the kind of rubbery ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
I'm going to taste it. I'm going to go.
Okay. You're just going in. Okay. All right.
Here we go.
Have I mentioned this is my favorite whiskey?
Not yet.
It is my favorite whiskey. That's 3 for 3, man. This is I feel like
really, this is why I love whiskey.
I'm happier and happier every sip we have of this.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh man,
it's so smooth. And this is like the strongest percentage we've had so far. It's so smooth. And so also, like, this is the most refined whiskey I think we've had so far. Like, it's very subtle in the mouth. Like, it's got some really nice, delicate flavors, but they all complement each other really well. It's like a really good meal, like a bite of like a really good meal with like where you put like multiple things on the fork. Like, I'm gonna have some meat and potatoes and some of those peas. I'm gonna eat them all at once, and they all just mix together in a good flavor.
You're reminding me of my friend Doug Morency, who had to portion his meal so that if he had potatoes and meat and corn and peas, he had to have the equal amount on every forkful. Anyways, I thought that was a bit obsessive.
That he might be OCD.
Could be.
Yeah.
Just a smidge. There's some like, this is very interesting because right off the top, there's that chocolate you were mentioning, but there's also the hint of sherry that goes with it. A little bit of spice to it too.
Yeah, there's a little spice.
I mean, it's
Kind of tastes like lightly like cloves to me.
a little like cloves. It's not as alcohol-y as the Orkney, which was a lower ABV.
Which is, it's crazy because that's a lower ABV. This is not, I don't get as much alcohol on it. Now, maybe that's also because we've been, acclimated because we're going up the ladder, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a lot smoother than I would have thought for its percentage.
Yeah.
Like, it's really impressive. And Springbank is one of the ones that, like, my father-in-law, some other folks I know who are like whiskey connoisseurs absolutely swear by.
Yes, it is one of those ones that people will hear that and go, oh, you know what? I don't care what bottling is. I don't care what age it is. I'll have one of those if you have it at a bar. Absolutely.
Hi, Mo.
I'm kind of that way too. Mo. 01, 03. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Wow, it just keeps developing. This is really interesting.
Yeah, it has like it's like at first it was just very welcoming, but now it's like it's like there's rooms beyond rooms or worlds beyond worlds. Like it's like you walked into like a nice, like really nice room in a mansion, and then someone opened the door and goes, let's go to the sitting room, or I could take you to the conservatory. Like, and it's just like more spaces of this huge, fancy, rich
Come
room.
to the wrapping room. Come to the room where the pine needles are aged.
Let us go to the sub-basement where the catacombs are.
Oh, and I have a lovely cask of Amontillado. You must try some.
I would absolutely be sealed in a wall alive if I was with this. That would be worth it, For a cask of this, it'd be worth it to be sealed in. I'd be like, all right, close up the wall.
With just that much?
It'd have to be a full bottle.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, got to make it worth it.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Oh, this is my favorite whiskey. Oh my gosh, it's like chocolate and it is like the chocolate birthday cake that my mother made for me when I was like 8 years old. It's so packed with nostalgia for me. It's just like it's shaped it like a rocket ship. She did all the time to do that, put Smarties in for the astronauts and just I love this.
It's like the everlasting gobstopper of whiskeys.
Yeah, because once like it continually evolves, and it's just like, all right, well, I thought I got to the finish notes, and then it's just kind of like, nope, now you're gonna get a little bit of warm fire to go with it, and now it's gonna be a little bit of this other stuff. And like for like Springbank, I thought was gonna be much more of a smoke bomb than this, but there's the peat in there, but it's not overwhelming the way that some of the ones I've had have been.
They do a very subtle peat, and I think most of their peat is actually from Islay. Tipsy Asparagus can fact check us.
If this was an SMWS, I would call it making s'mores in front of the castle fireplace, or making s'mores in the castle fireplace. That's what I'd call it. Or s'mores on the castle hearth, just because I like the word hearth. It's a good word.
Hearth is a good thing to throw in.
Hey, it's a good Scottish word.
Aye.
That's a good Scottish accent, Harris.
That's pretty good. Have you been to Scotland?
Sadly, no. I have not yet. Scotland and Ireland are two places I would really love to visit. And it's also two places where I would have to be going very careful to visit, because otherwise it'd be just like, all right, well, it's going to be a tour of every single distillery they have, and they're going to just like have to haul me out of the tubs.
I'm having trouble finding the problem with that.
Yeah, seems like that.
Hi, buddy.
Yay, cat time.
Here we go. The Mancoon.
Vincent.
Look at that cat. Oh my God.
Look at this. I can't believe it's a kitten. Like, he looks like an adult cat.
That's a 1-year-old cat. That's a
1-year-old cat.
A monster.
Yeah, there we go. He's only going to get bigger, apparently. And from what I've been told, they keep growing until they're like 2 years old.
Yeah, man.
That's going to be an 85-pound cat.
That cat will protect your home. It'll protect your home. That's like a self-defense cat.
I've had people who've told me that like their like what happens if you put dog software on cat hardware?
I love that. Thad, what do you got for us on this?
What is this?
I want to hear what you have to say.
I almost don't want to put water in this.
You don't have to put water in, Harris. You don't have to. You don't have to put water in. If you
but it's for science, you know.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Scientific rigor.
Oh no, it's fine. I haven't tried it with water yet. I just added it. So without water, here we go. For me on the nose, it was like a lot of cherries and cranberries thrown in there. I'm just gonna preface this with, if there was a such thing as a late fall / early winter whiskey, like I think this is it in a bottle for me. Off the nose, I get cherries and cranberries thrown in there. Like the smell of a wooden chest that's full of woolen blankets. There is a little bit hint of soap, but like non-detergent soap. So it's like non-scented soap, but it's soap. And then there's also some hints of savory pork thrown in there as well. For me, the taste is a little bit spicy. I get some mulled cider in there. It's a little sweet, and I definitely get pine needles, but like not in a gin way. So it's not like juniper pine needles, but like you're like walking through a forest of, pine trees. And then on the finish for me, it's sweet, but it's also has the knees astringency like you would find in black licorice, but it's also sweet. So it's good licorice.
I like black licorice.
Adding some water to it really kind of like dialed back the sweetness and brought the peat out. That was interesting.
All right, I'll try it.
I'm opening my Campbeltown water. I'm going to drop a drop in. Science. I don't think I have to shout science when I put that in, do I?
You do, yeah.
Yeah, I do? Oh.
That's the law.
I believe so. Ding. Have to do your best Thomas Dolby. Science!
Science! Science!
Oh, I like what it does on the nose.
It is. There's no sharp notes in the nose anymore. Yeah. It is just,
it's like a nice just like wooden, some piece of wooden furniture that's just like it's already been stained. It's been sitting around for a while to the point where it's just smooth. It's just, there's just a hint of that smell of
the oil has absorbed in. The skin oil is also been in there. There's been
it's old wood
furniture.
Yeah. But it's not like old, but it's like just to the point where it's almost old,
Listen, if you find a bottle of Springbank, go out and buy it and then send it to me, because I'm having trouble finding some. What is that? I'm not allowed to ask that? I think
no, you can ask whatever you want. That doesn't mean people are going to do it.
People will probably not do it. They will probably not do it. Yeah. If they have any sense. I will send them a nice card.
Yeah. Shout out in the stream.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is so good. And now I'm like, should I pour some more? But we only have like 2 minutes left. So I'm probably not going to. I'm going to save that for later. And
yeah, definitely saving that. I'm going to be looking for that later. Damn.
Oh man.
So Harris, like I teach improv to lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
I've been directing and teaching improv for over 30 years, and was trained by a guy named Keith Johnstone. But like a lot of the stuff that I feel like is, like this, like the seduction community or that community, like a lot of their stuff is like boiled down precepts of like improv ideas, like it's a very narrow version of that. Because for me, like improv is about connecting with people.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like creating, like, you're like a whole entire planet. I'm an entire planet. Like I want to know where those planets combine, and that third thing is what's interesting to me. But yeah, so I love all the stuff that that you talk about as far as like, connecting with people and all that sort of stuff. So, because I think like a lot of improv teaches kind of the same lessons. If you're really learning the idea that we are creating something together that is entirely new and entertaining, for both of us.
Yeah.
And better than we could create on our own.
Yeah. And that's actually, that comes down to like one of the things I saw it, I wish I could remember off the top of my head where I saw it, but somebody referred to it as like the jam band model of relationships, where it's like, all right, here's what I'm bringing to the table. Here's what you're bringing to the table. What happens if we just put them together and see what we do? But it may not be everything we expected, but it might also be really interesting.
But it takes listening. It takes like processing what the other person's providing and like incorporating yourself into it. It's a being here now. It's something that I think we've been hammering on for years. In terms of relationships, is like, be present in the moment. Like that is, don't be distracted.
And that's actually, I'm glad, Joseph, that you mentioned that, because that's actually, I tell a lot of my readers and a lot of my clients to actually study improv, as not necessarily as a way of being funny, but because of what, if you're taking a good improv class, what it's going to teach you of like, you don't want to try to be sitting there thinking about like the next thing you're going to say. You want to be in the moment. You want to react to what the other person is saying. You want to be like really, really present and paying attention and just not getting lost in your own head. And that's really like a really important thing if you're trying to connect with folks.
Yeah. As Mo says, it takes willingness. Our final whiskey of the night.
Oh man, this went by fast. I'm having a good time.
It's always good. This is a sherry butt, an ex-sherry butt. This is a 12-year-old Dailuaine old malt cask. It is one of 588 bottles they got out of this cask, which is a lot for even a sherry butt.
That is a lot of bottles. Like how did that happen?
I mean, generally, I think a sherry butt is around 600 bottles, so that they only lost that much. It might have been a tight-filled barrel. It's also 56.7%, which is a little bit of a bomb in terms of its alcohol percentage. Let's try it, shall we?
This is going to go in a different direction, I think, from everything we've had so far. And I'm not wrong. Yeah, this is what I always call a candy store whiskey, because right away it smells like an old-timey candy store.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, there is so much sugar and caramel in this.
Ribbon candy and...
Yeah, all those like jars that you can open up with the different, like you go into like Farrell's or like restaurant, you had that like back in the day. You had like you'd walk through a candy store to get in there.
Yeah, you'd open the jar of Bing Bangs and they'd be so fragrant. I don't even, that's a candy. It should be.
Or it's like an old timey drugstore. I imagine they have like those jars on that counter with like,
because it's also the Warren wood floor that's in there too. Like it's just been walked on so many times. There's a little kind of bowing in the wood on the planks.
Oh man. This is once again 4 for 4. This is like my favorite fucking whiskey.
It's hard not to say it.
I feel like I'm abusing the terminology, but I mean we've established it's a category, but like absolutely, like today is 4 for 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the sherry is much more pronounced in this one than I was expecting.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
This just wraps itself around my nose. This is like that warm rug that has been next to the cookies that have been made all day. Just like that battery kind of molassesy. Oh, just greatness.
I love sherry whiskeys. It's funny because I don't like sherry really. It's too sweet and
it's way too sweet.
But you drink it all out of the barrel or put it somewhere else, and then you make whiskey in that barrel, and I'm like, yeah.
That's how I feel about bourbon.
We know how you feel about bourbon, Andrew. It's well established.
Hey, if Texas is becoming a bourbon state, I will fight you, sir.
Yeah, man.
It's really good for preparing the staves to make scotch. That's all I'm saying.
We've had good bourbons on this show before. I've had Pappy Van Winkle before. That's, there's some amazing stuff out there.
Oh, there absolutely is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's impossible to get a hold of now, which really makes me sad.
And again, it's more. I think early on it was phenomenal, and also rare. Now I think it's just rare. I've had some recent Pappies, and they're just like, meh. It's not tipsy asparagus. You take that back. You wash your mouth out with scotch.
Miss Sim, I concur with what you're saying. I do. Love whiskey.
I fucking love whiskey. How dare you? I think Harris has something to say about that.
Ooh, no, I dove in and took a sip, and
let's sip it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, let's go. Yeah.
You talk while we sip.
Once again, that like I am absolutely shocked because this sucker is like practically half out like ABV and it's just, this is smooth. There's that little hint of burn at the end, but it's, this is dangerous.
Yeah. If you really try to hold it in your mouth a long time, you'll get the burn.
You get the burn?
But oh boy. Yeah, it is dangerous. It is smooth.
Yeah. Like this is one that I would see disappearing while I like just look in my glass, but I'm like, hey, where'd it go? I guess I need a refill.
And then you're looking for your sobriety and you go like, where'd that go? Oh my God. It left half an hour ago.
I know my car's around here somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like I just took a sip of like molasses and chocolate, or like that deep, rich sort of, caramelized, like a sugar in the raw,
This is the surprise that I love getting out of a whiskey, because it's not that dark in terms of a sherried whiskey.
This tastes much darker than it looks.
They actually have a little image on the inside of the bottle. What?
I love stuff like that.
It is definitely not on this side. It's just on the inside of the label.
2-layered printing there.
Looks like something you would see in The Shining, like at the end, like Jack Nicholson is probably one of those people, right? You can zoom in on the whiskey bottle and
he's just there.
Yeah. Money's no good here, Mr. Torrance.
What a great movie.
Wow. Yeah, I really love the movie.
I just literally watched Dr. Sleep last night.
What'd you think? I liked it. I quite liked it.
I'm a mark for Mike Flanagan's work. So like, especially all the stuff that he's done with like The Haunting of Hill House and Turning of the Screw and now The Midnight Society. But like working backwards that way, watching his like streaming stuff and then going back and rewatching Dr. Sleep, you can see that you can kind of see him really chomping at the bit to do much longer form storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But just that last little bit where they say, all right, we have to go back to the Overlook. It's just that moment of, it's like the horror equivalent of Captain America picking up Mjolnir or saying Avengers Assemble. It's like, oh, I didn't know I was waiting for this, but I was so waiting for this.
Yeah. We are like, if long form storytelling is done well, it is so satisfying, that's one of the things, like all the people who like are like, who talk about the MCU and are like dismissive or like, why is this so big? It's like, I mean, they kind of nailed something that no one really ever has, which is like filmic long form storytelling, like I don't think it's ever been done. Like, I don't think anyone's ever gotten past a trilogy.
Yeah,
before that,
the number of movies that they've connected in the world, how those connect, it's
hard to do because filmmaking is like, it's such a stressful, making films is so stressful. It's so easy to like try to go on this journey and get like buffeted away from the story into some bullshit, and to be able to do that there is
I working in the industry, it's amazing to me a good film ever gets made.
Hey, based on the number of bad films that are out there, I mean, I think that the statistics speak for themselves. Right?
That's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm sure someone looked at the script and said, oh, this is good. This is actually good. I'm going to put money into this. I'm going to make this. And then along the way, someone in some department decides something and it just kind of goes off.
No, I mean, successfully made it past a trilogy, not just like,
it did.
Like
however,
yeah.
I will say that without his ex-wife, I think it went off the rails an awful lot in 1, 2, and 3. That's my opinion.
Star Trek the movies of Star Trek are not like, but they're just like extensions of the series. They're not. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they love Star Trek, one continuous story though.
Yeah. Contact has nothing to do with the other Star Trek movies, so I have to disagree with that based on the premise.
What was the one?
Yeah, but like what happened in one movie, like even in the OG Treks, never really fully affected what happened in the others. The way that with the MCU, it was like, yeah, we're seeing different aspects of the same story from different characters, and you bring them all together in a way that nobody had ever done before. Even stuff like Jason versus Freddy never really had that same like, I can't believe these characters are all in the same screen together.
Yeah. The Hobbit destroyed long form story. I mean, long form
Movies,
story
maybe.
will never be destroyed.
The movies, maybe. Yeah.
It's so weird looking at Lord of the Rings and realizing that they're the reason why suddenly everybody was doing trilogies after that.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like story is such, because like, you know, I teach improv and I was trained by Keith Johnstone. I feel like a lot of improvisers talk about story, but Keith Johnstone, it's like it's holy grail, you know, and a lot of people talk about narrative, and I just feel like it's very misunderstood. Like most people don't, like they talk about it, but they don't understand it because it's really hard to understand, you know. Like I feel like story is such a fragile thing. But yeah, it's, you know, like you ask most people, like, what is a story? They'll say, well, it has a beginning, middle, and an end. And it's like, so does a snake. Like, that doesn't mean anything. Like, you're just repeating what someone told you, you know. Like, I think it's hard to access that.
And it's like, it's weird giving this much praise to a corporate product, but the fact that they are having to hit certain marks and still tell a good story while within a really absurd restraints in some ways, made what the MCU and what Marvel did really kind of impressive. Yeah. And then watching everybody trying to like scramble to catch up the way that like DC did, and DC, not catching that you need to let the stories
guys,
breathe.
stop, please stop.
You can't catch up to that. It's like you're trying to put, you know, it's like, what is Van Gogh doing? I'm going to do what Van Gogh was doing, right? And it's like, no, you got to be Van Gogh. Like they kind of caught lightning in a bottle. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they will learn from it. But
I think so much of it really.
Harris, I want to start this, you know, away from like story and whatnot, because it's fantastic. But what was your first whiskey experience? Like, what kind of got you into this deep hole? I think you alluded to it earlier.
Well, I started off for a while. I was making like infused alcohols, mostly vodkas. Because vodka is such a blank slate that you can do almost anything with it. And I was making those really as much as an opportunity to invite people back to my place as it was just because I like flavor. And then I decided, you know, I've done a lot of stuff with vodka. What happens if I do like a cherry whiskey? And before I started that, I was like, all right, well, what do I need to know about whiskey? Well, you know, if I'm going to do a sweet flavor, I should probably start with a relatively sweet whiskey to start with. So bourbon and Maker's Mark was an obvious place to go. And then at my friend Rubio's house party, I was trying some of it, and he's like, "Oh, you like whiskey?" It's like, "Yeah." It's like, "What have you had?" "Well, I've had Bullet and I've had Maker's Mark." It's like,
"I've had them all."
Let me educate you, my son. And he brought me over and showed me, like, you know, he had a bottle of Blanton's, he had a bottle of Pappy's, he had all of these really amazing whiskeys. And he said, "Here, I'm gonna try this one." And he poured me a little, like a finger of Pappy's and a little bit of distilled water in it. I just took one sip of that, kind of like, you know, let it swirl around in my mouth a little bit, and then looked at him and said, "You understand you've ruined me, right?" Like, from now on, this set a very high bar for me. And from there, it kind of became just kind of like an opportunity to explore and just seeing what the different varietals were like. I'm still not that big into ryes, but like finding some really good like Irish whiskeys and the different flavors there, especially like yellow spot and green spot or redbreast. Getting into scotch took a little bit more time because I'm not as much about the smoke. So I started off with Macallan, which was delicious, and then this, and especially the Springbank.
I feel like most people they think scotch is like smoky or peaty, but it's like there's so much that is not smoky. So much is not, you know. But it's like a wall, an imaginary wall for a lot of people, you know.
Yeah, and we're trying to say, just go try whiskeys.
Yeah.
See what can happen with the flavors.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bottle of Talisker a friend of mine shared with me that just I bounced off of that sucker so hard. And then there was another one that I want to say was I'm gonna absolutely massacre which one this was. I want to say it was a Glenfiddich Silver Oak. I may be inventing one entirely. I'm sure somebody in the chat is screaming what it actually was. I remember the Silver Oak part. That was one that I tried, and that was just this was just the one that made me like scotch. It was just, where have you been all my life? I've also got a friend of mine who really wants me to try some samples from his bottle of Nectar d'Or that I'm very curious about.
Is that Glenmorangie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one I knew. That one I'm fairly certain is Glenmorangie, like Nectar d'Or, and
should
everything he said about the flavor profile is just like, ooh, that sounds exactly up my alley. Because I tend to really like sweeter whiskeys. There's just something about them I find really appealing.
That said, I think you've tasted a couple of peated whiskeys, actually the first three, and been perfectly happy with them.
Oh, yes.
You did mention astringency in all three of those. And I think that that's something that peat can bring out. To me, the more and more I tasted whiskeys, the more I kind of chased that kind of astringency. I mean, I think Joseph and I, the very first time.
We're very similar. We did the same thing. We found peat and we were like, this is it, you know.
How can a liquid taste like this? So we became peat heads right away. But I do, like my brother, I brought him along into peated whiskey. Our friend Monique, she was like, no, I don't like peated whiskey. And then she started tasting these things and saying like, I love this thing. And you're going like, I don't want to tell you how peated that thing is that you love. It is a complex organic flavor that hits your taste buds and makes you crazy. So that's whiskey makes you crazy. That's the takeaway from this episode.
I mean, well, everybody knows that. You don't have to be a scientist. Thad has not weighed in on this.
Yes. Oh yeah. Please.
I got many thoughts. First of all, I'm with you all. Pete is what got me into whiskey. Like I was like, yeah, this is pretty good, but like Ardbeg Uigeadail, that's when I was like, okay, there's a lot more here. I'm fully bought in now. Second thing, while the Marvel movies are great, they're way too long. Oh my goodness. You can cut out like 30 to 45 minutes of exposition out of every movie and nothing would change. It is too long. I'm glad that they could carry a story along.
75% of films though. Come on.
Yeah, but 75% of films aren't 2.5 to 3 hours long though.
I don't know. Have you seen the Snyder cut of Justice League? I'm just saying.
And all right. And third point, thanks for reminding me. While I enjoy DC Comics more, the movies are so worse made, and I wish they would finally get it right. Finally, once, maybe, hopefully, before I die one day. But we're not here to talk
about
their
animated stuff. Like is great. Like the animated, if you know,
great,
yeah,
Young Justice, Harley Quinn, those are amazing.
Yeah,
Killing Joke is also a fun watch, or I found it very fun to watch. But whiskey wise, for this whiskey, I really enjoyed it. Likewise, for me on the nose, I definitely got some peanuts, roses or rose water. Some candy, vanilla cake with buttercream icing, and a hint of dry white wine in there. And it was very fizzy for me. On the taste, the sweetness carried through for me. The vanilla cake also carried through, and it was a little hot for me, but in a good way. There's also the vanilla still there for me. Overall, it was just enjoyable to drink. And the finish for me, like it reminded me of drinking water. It was nice and refreshing. And it might have had a little bit of brininess to it, but it was just enjoyable. I did try it with water. I would definitely say try at your own risk. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm also not saying, yeah, this was awesome. For me, like it became on the nose, it became a little bit bitter, hotter. Some brine came out and some cinnamon came out. The taste for me became flat and woody, but like it didn't make it bad. It was just not what it was.
A couple extra vowels in that bad though. Your bad had like 3 A's in it. It was like bad.
It made it bad. But it didn't make it bad.
That's what I'm saying.
That sounds right.
Just because it's bad guy doesn't mean it's bad guy.
This is the saddest part of our show.
Yeah,
it is, because we have to get super serious and like just dig into what's happened over the past hour. And Harris, I hate to do this to you. You're a guest on our show. You're an awesome person. I love the fact that you've gone from like a shallow point of view to like saying, how do we establish something of value with the opposite sex? How do we create something that is beneficial for both people? Like that's,
or not just the opposite sex, but who you're attracted to,
or who you're attracted to. Like, how do you make that connection? How do you find that way that you're sharing your person with the other person? So Joseph, I can't. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, we don't mean to get heavy on you, Harris, but we got to know. You had these 4 whiskeys, 5 if you count the warm up. And we need to know, Harris, do you like whiskey?
Oh, no, of course not. I fucking love whiskey.
Harris O'Malley, I think all your connections are there. Dr. Nerdlove everywhere.
Yes.
Please
Search
follow
for Dr.
him.
Nerdlove.
Please
You'll find me.
Chase him. Send him questions. Send him questions because, like, apparently he's got the answers.
He's got the answers.
Or at least I can fake it really, really well.
Thaddeus, thank you for being amazing. Joseph, thank you for being amazing. You people at home, thank you for watching and putting comments in. We really, really appreciate it. I think that's it. That's all the thanks. Have I missed anyone?
I think that's it. Solange.
Solange.
Solange.